We're going to talk about commercial water harvesting systems today. Water harvesting solutions is only a couple of years old, but we've seen just an amazing growth in the interest in these systems across the country. Greywater and rainwater, a wide variety of them. And so really what I want to do is kind of give you an overview of how these systems work, how we design them. They're all custom built systems. They're custom matched property by property and sources and uses dependent on that. So hopefully you get a chance to see kind of what we're talking about here. But just to kind of set it up, what's happening with the trends overall. We see a number of trends that are driving this and driving the interest in water harvesting nationwide. There's the interest in conserving water, the concern about the resource of water, which we talked about here at this conference quite a bit the last couple of days. We've also got this, I can't read upside down, the interest in commercial stormwater management and the requirement of many communities for managing stormwater, which is driving a lot of investment in infrastructure for capturing and cleaning stormwater, which is then creating an opportunity for that water to be harvested and reused, which is a great opportunity as well. There's also the whole green movement that's driving this. The LEED certification is driving this, so probably half the projects we work on or more are being driven because the building is trying to seek LEED certification. And this is one of the ways to earn points for that. We'll talk about that some more as well. And then we also see a number of other regulatory changes taking place that are starting to drive this. The carrots and the sticks out there for incentives for investing in these harvesting systems. The sticks to say that we are going to force greywater harvesting or rainwater harvesting for irrigation in some communities. It's still early, but we're seeing that all kind of contributing to this overall growth in the trend for harvesting systems. So what are the drivers for this? Obviously the idea to save money on municipal water, and there's payback, although the payback is quite a long time where water is inexpensive. The idea of being able to reutilize stormwater that they've already paid to capture that, clean it up to be able to now use that water as opposed to just releasing it back to the municipal system and paying for that water to come back again, cleaned up for drinking quality. Protecting the environment. This is a good practice. It reduces the runoff of buildings, takes that water, retains it on the site for reuse. The green movement, a little bit, I talked about that already, the LEED certification, I've got a chart for that as well. The regulatory requirements, the incentives, where communities are starting to say this is an important issue. Saving water is an issue and we have to have regulation in place in order to try to drive that. The higher resale, the buildings that are able to save $20,000, $30,000 a year in water savings, that's not atypical for these systems, should be worth more. So even if they're not paying back immediately and the savings on water, that building has a life value that's going to be worth more down the road for having these systems installed and having an ongoing savings and overall operational costs. Finally, it's good PR. Having a system like this installed says a lot about the company. It says a lot to the employees of that company, to the community. So it really is, it's the right thing to do, and we see a lot of communities, a lot of companies doing that, making that one of the main reasons they do it, because it is the right thing to do. LEED certification, there are a lot of points available that tie to water harvesting practices. 10 or more points can be earned out of a total of 30 you need to get LEED certification. So particularly if you want to go to gold or platinum, you really have to do some kind of water harvesting, some kind of water reuse in order to attain those kind of points you need for the higher levels of LEED. What's in it for the plumbing trade? I mean, I'm really preaching this is big news for the plumbing trade, and plumbers are the partners for us overall. It's going to be $1 billion industry. It's coming quickly. In the last few years, it's probably doubled or tripled in just the last 3 or 4 years as far as the number of projects that are being done out there. The plumbing industry is very much involved with this. We have all the plumbing to and from the system has to be installed by plumbers. If you're going to do greywater harvesting, you've got to capture separate supply lines from your showers and sinks. If you're going to do greywater reuse for flushing toilets, you need separate supply lines to the toilets. So there's a lot of plumbing involved to make these things work. And in our model, at least, the plumbers are our partners in getting these systems installed, working with us to get them up and running, and then the ongoing maintenance of those systems as well is the job of a plumber. So, we really want to encourage plumbers to be supportive of harvesting as one of an emerging trends that's important to them as well. Commercial buildings, there's been a lot of talk about homes and about harvesting for homes and communities like that, but really it's the commercial buildings that are the high density users of water, and they also tend to be high density collectors of stormwater. They have big impermeable roofs, they've got big parking lots, there are a lot of toilets being flushed. In a typical building, let's say with 250 employees in that building, they're going to use 500,000 gallons a year or more just for flushing toilets in that building. They're going to use maybe 750,000 gallons to irrigate the landscaping around that building. And if they're using an evaporative cooling tower on the roof, another 1.5 million gallons for that. So it's a lot of water that's drinking water quality being used for a non-potable use. At the same time, the rooftop's going to have maybe 500,000 gallons coming off that could be captured and used. The condensate from the cooling system alone could be 250,000 gallons of water or more. We had one project in Chicago, one office building, 10-story office building, where they had 12 gallons a minute of condensate coming out of 4 gigantic cooling. 12 gallons a minute was hundreds of thousands of gallons a month. That was just going to the stormwater system, that wasn't being used and captured. And then also, if you wanted to capture the parking lot water, the stormwater off the parking lot, that could be 1.5 million gallons of water. So 3.5, 4 million gallons of supply and of use of non-potable water. I showed this chart yesterday just saying if you look at the major consumption of water in a lot of these office buildings, schools, malls, typical commercial buildings, and the main uses of water are toilets, irrigation, cooling towers. You add them all up and you've got over 90% of the total water being used is water for non-potable use. So there's a tremendous opportunity in these commercial buildings, and the amounts are large. 3, 4, 5 million gallons a year is the impact we're talking about, whereas a typical home might be a few thousand gallons a year. So this is really where the opportunity is, where the payout's a lot greater, and where we need to focus, I think, before we get to homeowners, focus here first. I talked about the greywater conundrum yesterday, in that we really have to, if you want to do greywater harvesting, you want to do greywater or reuse water for flushing toilets, that has to be done when the building's being designed. And so we really are pushing and trying to stress that architects and engineers think about these capabilities early in the building process and make that part of the overall plan for the building, because once the building is done, it's too late to do that. You can't go back economically and replumb for toilet flushing with reuse water, or replumb to capture shower and sink water. It's not practical to do that. So it really has to be done in the building planning stage. I talked about this a little bit yesterday too, in the whole building process, starting at the very beginning. We're scoping a system and working with the architects then to design a system and really decide what the right kind of system is for that property. How is the building being used? What are potential sources? What are potential uses? What kind of storage would you use? How much would the system cost? We can do all that pretty quickly when a building is in the early stages and we have the opportunity to influence the design of the building as related to this. So we start with the architects first, and then it would move to the engineers of the building, where we'd work with the engineers to actually design and specify a system that would work for that building. And then when the building goes out for bid, this is where the plumbing trade gets involved. And in general, these systems are part of the overall plumbing bid that's going out. So we get calls from plumbers who say, I see this rainwater, greywater system, I don't know what it takes, I'm not familiar with these systems, and then we would provide a package price that would be all that system ready to go for the plumber to install. So they become our customer. That we work with them to time how that system is built with regard to when they're going to be ready for it, to install it. And then we're there on site with them to oversee the installation. So they are installing it. They've got to deal with all the local codes and and work with the unions, whoever else is actually going to manage that locally. But we're there as a manufacturer's rep then to see that the system gets installed, that it's commissioned and working properly. And then once the building is built, then the last part of this is that we provide the warranty to the building for the whole system intact. We provide training for the staff, the manuals on how to use the system, so we make sure that the system is working right and that it's going to be used correctly once the building is up and running.